What was meant to be a simple business trip, a 3-hour train ride to Chicago, a couple of nights in a hotel for a marketing conference, and then a return to my husband and the life that had been slowly stifling me, quickly morphed into something unexpected. I embarked on my journey ahead of time, located my seat by the window, and nestled in with a warm cup of coffee. It was then that he settled into the aisle seat beside me. He stood tall, with dark hair framing a clean-shaven jawline that seemed almost intentionally sculpted. With a courteous smile, he placed his briefcase on the ground. "Are you also making your way to Chicago?" he inquired, his tone rich yet relaxed. "Indeed," I responded, maintaining brevity. Engaging in light conversation was rarely my forte. Yet there was something in the way he regarded me, not merely my features, but as if he sought to decipher my very essence, that compelled me to maintain his gaze just a heartbeat longer than required. In the initial hour, our words were few and far between. He perused something on his tablet while I feigned scrolling through emails. Yet, from time to time, I would notice him stealing a glance in my direction. As the second hour unfolded, our conversation flowed, discussing work, the advantages of the train over flying, and reminiscing about the places we had visited. He inquired about my profession, my loved ones. I refrained from mentioning my husband. As the train decelerated for a fleeting pause, an unexpected jolt caused his arm to graze against mine. It was trivial, and yet the warmth remained. The delicate aroma of his cologne lingered in the air, understated yet striking. As the skyline of Chicago came into view, it seemed as though our connection had deepened beyond the mere span of a few hours. As we disembarked from the train, he glanced at me and asked, "Where are you staying?" "Merely downtown," I replied with a hint of ambiguity. His smile held a hint of mischief, suggesting a depth that was anything but pure. "I feel the same. I ought to have stopped there." As I strolled into the hotel lobby half an hour later, my luggage in hand, I spotted him, nonchalantly leaning against the check-in counter. In that moment, as our gazes intertwined, the truth was unmistakable. He had pursued me. The lobby exuded the fragrance of polished marble intertwined with hints of luxurious citrus. Bellmen flowed with a graceful precision, their carts gliding by, accompanied by the gentle chime of keys. I initially feigned ignorance of his presence. There he was, one elbow casually resting on the check-in counter, as though it were his own domain. As the clerk deftly slid my keycard across the desk, I pivoted and there he stood, right before me, the gentleman residing in apartment 14B. He watched me intently, as if he wished to etch this moment into his memory, waiting to see if I would choose to turn and leave. "Long line," he remarked, as though we had casually crossed paths in the aisles of a grocery store. "Chicago on a Thursday," I replied, as if that clarified everything. He grasped the handle of his modest carry-on and lifted it with ease. "Elevators. I ought to have mentioned that I required the restroom. I ought to have mentioned that I left something behind on the train. I ought to have uttered anything but a simple yes. Yet my tongue, betraying my thoughts, replied, "Sure." We entered the elevator. A pair adorned in identical conference badges nestled in behind us. A bellman balanced a luggage cart and inquired, "Which floor?" The occupant of 14B pressed the button for the 8th floor, claiming it for himself. I dialed 9 for myself. The doors shut, a gleaming maw enclosing our modest choice within. Silence enveloped us as we ascended. Initially, that wasn't the case. The digits flickered 2, 3, 4. The corridor's citrus scent yielded to the unmistakable aroma of the elevator. Polished metal, chilled air circulating softly, a serene hush enveloping the space. His reflection caught my eye in the mirrored panel. He observed me with a quiet intensity, yet without the weight of a gaze that could pierce through. A query that strides forward. At 5, the pair disembarked. At 6, the bellman fulfilled his duty. The doors whispered closed once more. We found ourselves in solitude. "Is it your habit to hold your breath while in elevators?" he inquired, his gaze averted from mine. "I'm not," I insisted, my breath escaping in a hurried rush. He grinned at the images of ourselves in the glass. "You were on the train as well." Just as we approached the city, we moved beyond 7. The elevator ascended, suspended in time like a lingering melody. "I didn't follow you," he finally stated, his voice steady. Not in the manner that term suggests. I simply wished for the dialogue to linger beyond the platform. It seems you discovered the same hotel, I remarked. Chicago on a Thursday, he repeated, as though we had uncovered a shared secret. The light flickered 8 times. The doors swung wide. He remained still. This is me, he declared, and then he performed an act that only someone who straddles the line between familiarity and anonymity could achieve. He allowed the doors to begin their slow closure without exiting, then deftly halted them with the side of his hand. If I disembark now, he inquired, would you prefer I had chosen a different train? I failed to respond promptly. The doors glided shut once more, and the elevator ascended, the light inching closer to 9. He smiled as if we had exchanged a hidden truth. You didn't give your consent, he remarked. You never uttered the word no. 9, I uttered, thankful for the reprieve that a simple digit provided. Here I stand. The doors swung wide to reveal a gentler corridor, where the carpet absorbed each step and the lamps cast a glow that rendered the surroundings reminiscent of a distant recollection. I emerged into the world beyond. He remained indoors. The handle of his carry-on shimmered in the beam of light. Now comes the moment when I request your number, he remarked. So you're telling me you're married? The term lingered in the air, married, like a garment on a hook, one I hadn't yet chosen to don or discard. You never inquired, I remarked. Would you like me to? I clenched the keycard sleeve firmly in my hand. It would be unwise. He inclined his head, a subtle acknowledgement of a force beyond our grasp. I can respect shouldn't. The doors began to glide open, calm and indifferent. However, should you reconsider, he continued, I'll be at the bar downstairs in 20 minutes. Not a second longer. Not a moment more. What if I don't show up? I inquired, even though I was already aware. It was on a train where our paths first crossed, he remarked. And that is where our journey concludes. The doors shut quietly. I found myself in the stillness of the hallway, the carpet beneath my feet resembling a serene sea. At the final curve, room 914 lingered. A door, a lock, a decision to be made. I glided the card through the reader. The emerald beacon flickered its approval. Within the confines of the room, everything was orderly, much like any hotel room. Impersonal, poised for disruption. I placed my bag on the luggage rack, drawing back the curtains to reveal a battered twilight. The shimmering glass of Chicago and the sturdy steel of the river. Below, a yellow taxi glided along the curb, punctuating the scene with its vibrant hue. My phone illuminated with 2 messages from my husband. One concerning the plumber, the other detailing our weekend plans. I responded, all should be well. I shall return on Saturday. I omitted the fact that I struggled to breathe in elevators or that I was once someone who never lingered in hallways, contemplating bars I had no intention of visiting. I cleansed my hands, seeking to occupy my restless thoughts. I promised myself I would slip into the hotel robe, order some soup, and lose myself in a show that held no interest until sleep finally claimed me. That was the arrangement crafted by kind souls when their hearts and bodies find themselves at odds. I opted for a different blouse instead. Deep silk devoid of theatrics. I applied mascara to my lashes, brushed color onto my lips, only donning it when I wished to recall its presence. Standing at the threshold, I found myself pausing. 20 minutes offers a semblance of grace. It suggests that I won't compel you to make a choice for eternity. At this very moment, I descended in the elevator. I refrained from holding my breath. The lobby resonated with a gentle Friday buzz. A saxophone flowed softly from concealed speakers. The bar curved gracefully, a crescent of gleaming walnut illuminated by the soft, inviting glow of lamps. He lingered in the corner, a glass of amber liquid resting before him, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up. Upon catching sight of me, he rose to his feet. Not in a grand manner, merely enough to indicate that he hadn't taken anything for granted. You came, he remarked, a hint of astonishment threading through his composure. I had no intention of doing so, I replied, taken aback by my own candor. Should I express regret for my inquiry? Absolutely not, I replied. I urge you to inquire more thoughtfully. He inclined his head, curiosity piqued. Improved. Inquire of me in a manner that allows me to depart with my dignity intact. He felt no offense. He motioned toward the stool next to him. May I offer you a drink that you'll turn down twice before finally agreeing to? A smile nearly graced my lips. Just once. Just one, he instructed the bartender, casting a quick glance my way for confirmation. I provided it. He chose what I would have, something fresh with a hint of lemon, as if he'd perused the edges of my existence and discovered my script. We failed to raise a glass. There was no flirtation between us. Initially, that was not the case. We conversed as if we were two souls who had crossed paths briefly, while the scenery flowed around us, allowing us to feign that time was still propelling us forward. He inquired about my work, not out of a desire for admiration, but to grasp what brought rhythm to my daily life. I inquired about his presence. That's when I discovered he wasn't attending the conference at all. He was presenting a product to a company that had a strict policy against meetings after 4 p.m. That's the reason for trains, he remarked. They allowed a day to unfold. Is that how you're treating mine? I inquired. He pondered. No, it seems to me that you are taking that upon yourself. The hush enveloped the room, free from any discomfort. He made no move to take my hand. He remained steadfast, not moving an inch closer. He appeared to be a man who could embrace desire as others might embrace the changing skies, acknowledging it without casting blame. I am married, I finally confessed, for the truth would come to light, regardless of my invitation. He maintained his gaze. Does he possess kindness? Some inquiries are portals cloaked in the guise of phrases. I gazed at the lemon, its vibrant hue bending the sunlight as it danced within my glass. He is known to me. Being familiar doesn't equate to being kind, he remarked softly. What about you? I inquired. Who are you? It's just temporary, he stated, devoid of any remorse, yet truthful. I gulped. The truth was the perilous aspect. He nudged the lemon gently, its rind swaying like a miniature vessel on a tranquil sea. Would you allow me the pleasure of escorting you to the elevators? He asked, his tone light and unencumbered, as if he truly meant every word. Yes, I replied, before my better judgment could begin to raise its concerns. We paused at the shining chrome. The lobby hummed behind us, a vibrant tapestry of existence unfolding for others. He pressed the upward arrow. As the doors swung open, he remained outside, hesitating to cross the threshold. This is where I take my leave, he remarked. Is that your best request? I got through it, half chuckling. He gave a slight shake of his head. No, that was my vow. Here's the request. He exhaled slowly. If you wish for my company, simply say stay. If you choose not to, then bid the night farewell. Regardless, this will be the final exchange between us this evening. The elevator stood still, unwavering like a sentinel in the stillness of the building. In a distant place, a saxophone bent into a melancholic blue note, holding its resonance in the air. I gazed at the reflective surfaces, at the figure draped in dark silk who had rediscovered the art of breathing. I glanced at the man who had trailed me, lingering just close enough to allow me the freedom to decide. The doors slowly started to shut. Remain, I urged. The ascent to the 9th floor was enveloped in a quietude, yet it was not the sort of quiet that signifies conclusion. It was the sort that extends, enveloping and firm, until its presence tingled at your fingertips. He maintained a respectful distance, yet was near enough for the aroma of his cologne, rich with cedar undertones and a subtle hint of citrus, to intertwine with my breath. I promised myself I would find my voice when the doors swung wide. I did not. We entered the corridor. The carpet absorbed all noise, leaving only the gentle, measured rhythm of our footsteps. My room lay at the distant end. He refrained from inquiring about the number. There was no necessity for him to do so. Those who have been mulling over the same idea require no guidance. At 9:14, I inserted the keycard. The emerald beacon flickered to life. I swung the door ajar, then paused, uncertainty creeping in. Would you like to step inside? I inquired, the phrasing far too simple for the weight it carried. He hesitated to step forward immediately. He rested his shoulder against the doorframe, observing me as if he were a man contemplating the value of his desires against the price they demand. "You are bound by marriage," he remarked. "It is not a question." "Yes." My voice came out softer than I had hoped. "So, you're still expecting me to step over this boundary?" I just wanted to point out that it was you who chose to follow me. Yet that was not the reality. We had both been pursuing something, navigating through train cars, weaving through the lobby, slipping between two individuals who ought to have been unfamiliar. "I'm inquiring," I stated, "as I'm uncertain if this opportunity will present itself again." His eyes grew tender. "That's not quite the same as requiring it, don't you think?" I inquired. For an extended pause we remained still, neither of us daring to break the silence. He then advanced with purpose. With a soft click, the latch secured itself behind him. The space seemed to shrink, the atmosphere heavy. With intention, I placed my bag on the chair. He placed it on the floor, yet he clung to the handle. "This can be a conversation," he murmured softly, "or it can become something irreversible. I'm perfectly okay with either option." "You're already aware of the reason for my visit," I replied. He smiled, slowly with intention, and placed the handle down gently. "It is settled then." To my surprise he held back, not leaning in for a kiss immediately. He picked up the glass of water that the hotel had placed on the nightstand and offered it to me. "Drink," he instructed. "I need you to understand that this isn't merely the influence of the wine from the bar." I indulged in a drink. The chill of the water sent a shiver coursing through me. He gently removed the glass from my grasp and placed it aside. His fingers brushed against mine, radiating warmth, unwavering. He moved in just within reach, allowing me to notice the subtle stubble on his jaw and the glimmers of gold in his eyes that the dim bar light had concealed. "You can still whisper good night," he murmured. "I shall not," I replied. The initial kiss lacked a sense of urgency. It was deliberate, akin to revealing a sheet of paper that had remained creased for ages. His hand cradled my jaw, his thumb gliding over my cheekbone as if seeking to memorize its contours. My hand traced the contour of his shoulder, the fabric of his shirt more delicate than I had anticipated. We remained in that stillness for what seemed like an eternity before any other motion broke the silence. Then his other hand found its way to my waist, and the distance that separated us vanished. I neglected to consider my husband. I neglected to consider the train, the hotel, and the reality that my name wasn't the sole thing hanging in the balance. I pondered how my body seemed to lean into his, as if it had already recognized him. As we finally emerged for breath, he leaned his forehead gently against mine. "I have no desire to cause you pain," he expressed. "Then don't," I replied. A soft chuckle escaped him, barely audible. "You present it as if it were a simple task." "Tonight is the night," I declared. He kissed me once more, and this time it was anything but cautious. First, the jacket slipped off his shoulders, followed by mine. The buttons of my blouse slipped free, each one releasing a delicate sound that broke the silence. His hands glided with intention, yet without haste, reminiscent of how one might treat something precious, fearing it could slip away at any moment. We didn't reach the bed immediately. We lingered by the window, the city lights casting our silhouettes upon the glass. From this vantage point we were indistinct, merely two silhouettes merging together. And then we transcended mere shadows. Amidst the haze of it all, I came to understand that his gaze lingered on me more than his hands did. It wasn't a sense of separation. Rather, it felt as though he was etching the essence of my being in this precise moment into his memory. In the aftermath, silence enveloped us, lingering in the air for what felt like an eternity. We lingered in proximity, our breaths harmonizing in a gentle rhythm. The city continued its relentless pace beyond the walls. Within those walls, time itself had come to a standstill. At last he uttered, "I can't predict what tomorrow holds." I leaned my head gently against his shoulder. "I don't either. Yet I am certain," he continued, "that I have no regrets about pursuing you." I chose not to respond, not due to a lack of shared feelings, but because I understood that once I uttered those words, their truth would bind me in a way I could never reverse. The gentle patter of rain against the hotel window roused me from slumber. It was a gentle, unwavering rhythm, the sort that could convince you the day had all the time in the world to spare. For a fleeting moment, the surroundings slipped from my mind. In that moment I sensed the heaviness of his arm resting on my waist, the gentle rhythmic rise and fall of his breath brushing against my back. The sheets carried a subtle scent of laundry detergent, intertwined with a whisper of his essence. We remained still for what felt like an eternity. It seemed as though we were both engaged in a delicate charade, as if the reality beyond those four walls had yet to make its presence known. The warmth of his body enveloped me, creating a sensation that blurred the lines of reality, as if time itself had paused in that moment. Yet time refuses to pause. It returns slowly but surely, inch by inch. He was the first to move, his fingers wandering in a leisurely dance along my side. "Good morning," he whispered softly. I pivoted to meet his gaze. His hair lay in disarray, and his eyes retained a gentle softness, remnants of slumber lingering within them. I had never encountered him in this way, open, nearly youthful. "Morning," I responded, the word weighing heavily on my tongue. The night remained unspoken between us. Initially, not at all. We discussed the rain, pondered the value of the conference sessions, and shared thoughts on coffee. The dialogue was courteous, yet the surroundings were anything but civil. Yet in time the truth seeped in through the fissures. "I ought to." I motioned absently toward the bed's edge, where my phone lay face down on the nightstand. He trailed his eyes along the direction of my stare. "Do you believe he has reached out?" The individual in question didn't require a name. "Perhaps," I replied. "Perhaps not. In any case." He gave a slight nod, shifting onto his back. "I wish to ease your burden." A harsh chuckle slipped from my lips before I could rein it in. The path was always destined to be challenging. I tossed my legs over the edge of the bed, my hand searching for the blouse draped over the chair. The fabric lay in disarray, my hair a chaotic tangle. I glimpsed my reflection in the window, an image familiar yet foreign. He propped himself up, leaning in with his elbows resting on his knees. "Is there any remorse?" My fingers hovered, poised over the final button, uncertainty gripping me. "No," I finally replied. "Not at this moment." That brought a smile to his face, small, yet tinged with a hint of sadness. "I feel the same way." The journey to the elevator carried a distinct air, unlike the previous night. Our hands never touched. We didn't exchange looks as if they were valuable coins. We maintained a deliberate distance, as if the very walls were eavesdropping on our exchange. The lobby buzzed with activity as guests checked out, their suitcases gliding over the polished marble floor. He held his silence until we stepped outside, sheltered beneath the hotel's awning, before he chose to speak once more. "Will you be attending the conference?" he inquired. "Indeed. Perhaps we shall encounter one another there." It was not a matter for inquiry. It was a gesture, one I hesitated to accept. As I began to pivot toward the street, his hand shot out, gripping my wrist firmly. Not difficult, just sufficient to bring me to a halt. "I trailed behind you," he murmured, "for I couldn't bear the thought of that train ride being the sole moment I shared with you." "What comes next?" I inquired. He released my wrist. "At this moment, I must unravel the consequences of my actions. I'd like to express that we share that sentiment." Yet the words remained stuck in my throat. The rain poured down with increasing intensity. I emerged from beneath the awning, allowing the rain to drench my hair and seep into my clothes. The cold pierced my skin, a stark reminder of my existence, of my essence, even as I momentarily drifted away from the life I knew. As I cast a backward glance, he remained there, observing me through the cascading rain. I refrained from waving. Neither did he. The morning unfolded, guiding us along divergent paths. The conference unfolded in a whirlwind of name tags, the soft clinking of coffee cups, and PowerPoint slides that merged into a uniform blue template. I positioned myself at the rear of the ballroom, feigning interest in my notes as the keynote speaker monotonously discussed leveraging market trends. My mind, however, was consumed by thoughts of the man I had shared the night with, lost among the sea of 300 unfamiliar faces in this space. During the initial coffee break, I caught sight of him. He stood by the pastry table, engaged in conversation with a man in a navy suit, laughter spilling from his lips as if the world around them had remained untouched by chaos. As if we weren't two souls who had devoted hours to exploring every inch of each other's skin in a hotel bed just 12 hours prior. For a fleeting moment, I considered simply moving on without acknowledging him, feigning that the night had never transpired. Yet, when his gaze locked onto mine amidst the throng, my legs faltered. We remained untouched. Not a single handshake exchanged. A subtle gesture, reminiscent of an unspoken agreement between two souls. "How is your morning unfolding?" he inquired. "Very well," I deceived. "Is it yours?" He cast a fleeting look at the colleague in the navy suit, who had drifted off. Improved now. Our conversation resembled that of mere acquaintances. We talked about the coffee, rather bitter, the speaker lineup, easily forgotten, and the top lunch spots in the vicinity. Yet, underlying everything, a tension vibrated silently, like an unseen thread connecting us. As the next session commenced, he inched nearer. "There's a more serene spot upstairs, if that is your desire." I understood his meaning. Yet deep down I was aware that I ought not to. Yet I pursued him. We found ourselves in a quaint networking lounge, sparse, save for a handful of mismatched chairs and a vending machine softly humming in the corner. Sunlight poured through the lofty windows, dust motes swirling in the air. As if they were lost in a world of their own, we were positioned face to face, our knees nearly brushing against one another. "The train keeps occupying my thoughts," he remarked. A subtle smile graced my lips. "I feel the same." "And the inn?" My breath hitched. "Well, that certainly wasn't part of the plan." He inclined his head. "Is that something you truly believe?" I chose not to respond. I focused on the distance that separated us, the narrow chasm that seemed to embody both a refuge and a challenge. "I've made my decision. I'm departing tonight," I declared at last. He inclined his head with deliberation. "I feel the same way. It's a different train indeed. Perhaps it's for the best," I murmured, though the words lingered on my tongue like a bitter metal. We lingered in quietude for a moment, attuned to the soft murmur of the vending machine. He leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "I believe we've crossed the threshold of unfamiliarity." "Indeed," I concurred. "Yet we are not defined by anything else either." He appeared poised to utter something further, yet just then the lounge door swung open, and a cluster of attendees entered, their laughter ringing out with excessive volume. The moment evaporated swiftly, akin to vapor in frigid air. We both rose to our feet. "This time I won't follow you," he murmured gently. "I understand," I responded. "I refused to wait for you to." We stepped out side by side, yet as the corridor diverged, we chose not to glance back. That evening I stepped onto the train bound for home, Solitude my only companion. The city lights merged into streaks upon the glass, and for a brief moment, I fancied I caught a glimpse of him in the reflection. Seat 14B once more, grinning as if he were aware of the outcome all along. Yet, as I pivoted, there it was, my own visage reflecting back at me.